Yo, what is going on today, NFT Bros Podcast listeners? I am Adam, your host, and on today's episode, we have a special guest coming on. Koko from NGMI Lab is on with us today. She is a writer, researcher, performer, and runs NGMI Labs, which I will let her explain more about what that is before we dive into the episode. Koko, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm really grateful to be here, Adam. So yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the discussion today. I just had one quick question. Will you introduce yourself in 60 seconds to 2 minutes to the audience and let them know kind of a little bit more about your background, how you got into Web3, what you're currently doing?
Yeah, great. So basically, I actually, if we go wind out really back, I actually used to be an actor. I still am an actor, actor and performer since 2013. And then obviously all of that kind of shut down in 2020 during the pandemic, and I happened to be at home with my parents, and I was quarantining, so I was stuck in my grandma's bedroom for like uh, 2 weeks, and I just kind of went down the crypto rabbit hole when that happened, and that's how I kind of got into crypto. I kind of just like consumed an insane amount of YouTube videos, all about um, crypto. I kind of discovered people like Elliot Trades and Crypto Lark, and even went down the BitBoy rabbit hole, and just really just consumed so much about crypto. And then for the first year, I was kind of like learning about what is crypto. I spent so much time I just was mesmerized by it. I went and sort of did so much reading and learning, and kind of obviously was there for the 2021 bull run, seeing all the just crazy stuff that happens, and just how all these like kind of narratives pop up and people just swarm to them like crazy, and then just like mesmerized by how like NFTs just like kind of reignited what seemed to be the start of a bear market. Just came out of nowhere, and just how excited people are by new technology and how it can just change things. And there's kind of like all these like light bulbs going off for me, and I really really enjoyed that. And that was around the time, about like August time 2021, when I kind of discovered Neo Tokyo. So I was one of the first, as we call ourselves, OG minters, and it was the first time actually in this kind of first year of um, crypto that I'd found people and friends within the crypto community. So like, so this Neo Tokyo community kind of suddenly put me in touch with like 4,000 people who were kind of on the same page, really excited about NFTs and crypto and all sorts of things to do with the blockchain. And that's where I found sort of like my first networks, my first people that are building projects. And at first, I just tried to get involved as much as possible. Be present, be listening, talk to people, and then I kind of found myself helping out with this project. I started helping out with VCs and different sort of projects that were kind of coming out of Neo Tokyo. And then I also, one of the things I was helping out with was the research team inside of Neo Tokyo, which was like a subsection inside the community where we would provide high quality research reports, and in depth, as detailed as possible, and completely unbiased for our community, so that they could sort of go and make more informed decisions about tokens and games and projects that were kind of starting out. And as sort of like the 2022 hype started dying down and things started getting scary, it was kind of like a time for us to really think about how we could really create value, but beyond the community of Neo Tokyo, but see if we could take this to the like wider Web3 world. And the group of us that, the group of people that I've been working with since that I met in Neo Tokyo are just like amazing. They're just such great people, and it's just amazing how you can find such like-minded people in a community like that you've never physically met before just through an NFT. But I'll just continue. Okay, so yeah, so I was we decided to take this project. We'd been actually coined a subsection of the research team had been coined NGMI team, or Team NGMI, because we had this habit of just writing off 90% of the projects that came across us, as not going to make it. And because we were just so harsh in our views, but we like to call ourselves high in our standards rather than harsh in our views. But So then what we did is we moved on to the wider world. We built a business out of this like little team to take research and sort of high principled research to the wider Web3 world.
That's awesome. That is a very similar story into how I got into NFTs. I kind of really had no idea about them. I was fairly secluded, and I wasn't quarantined, but I was in a place where I was kind of forced to, I don't know, put my attention somewhere else so that I wasn't in my head. And I was an OG mentor of Neo Tokyo, but I did not know how to mint from a contract. And Alex Becker posted a tweet, and he put the wallet address in where you were supposed to put the token ID that you wanted to mint. And I didn't know any better. And I sat there and I was in wave 2, and wave 3 goes, and wave 4 goes, and wave 5 goes, and it's gone. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I was calling my current co-founder, trying to get him on the phone because he was more of a crypto DJ than I, and he knew how to mint from a contract. I was trying to do all this research on but all these like smart contracts are, for the most part, built differently. They have the same framework, but there were nuances, and so nothing I was searching on Google was really coming up with anything. No YouTube videos explained it, and so I fucked up. I missed, but it is what it is. You mentioned something that intrigues me, and that was you came from the world of being an actress, and that has absolutely nothing to do with NFTs or technology or like anything. So a question that I like to ask all of my podcast guests is, explain to me in your own words what an NFT is to you. Like you're explaining it to somebody who doesn't know what it is.
Ooh, okay. Do you know, I've had to do this a lot because I'm still an actor. I still kind of do work in the acting industry here and there. What I say, and I try and keep it as simple and as tech free as possible, but I basically say, just give me a moment. It's quite. So an NFT is pretty much a digital asset that is a representation of a digital asset that is not able to be forged, replicated, or altered. And so that makes it a very unique proposition for all sorts of use cases. And then I just leave it there.
There it is. And then the conversation goes, and the wheels start spinning in their head. I actually just posted a video on my YouTube last night about this topic of explaining what NFTs are to individual people and how you have to explain them differently. Because if you go and explain to somebody who's an actress for her whole life and has no idea NFTs existed, but you just started a conversation with her and she asks, oh, well, like, what is an NFT? And you go, oh, well, it's a blockchain verifiable asset that is on the Ethereum blockchain, and it shows digital proof of ownership. And it's really cool because it's built on Solidity, and you're going to lose them. You have to know your audience and know who you're speaking to. And so there's so many different ways to explain what an NFT is to different people. And I think that having these conversations, and this is a question I like asking because I think being able to take these clips and distribute them across social media helps more people understand what NFTs are in an easier manner, because how I explain it may not make sense to them, but how you explain it may make sense to somebody who sees this. And so I love starting the episodes by asking that question, and I find it intriguing to hear the answers.
I mean, yeah, you're totally right. And that's what what we're trying to do at NGMI Lab as part of our whole mission statement is to kind of help people understand, cross that bridge between like what we call the real world and to like sort of like, I guess, the crypto and degen and NFT world is, how do you make things click? Because I see this a lot. And thankfully, things like YouTube and podcasts and just consuming an insane amount of content has been what has helped me learn through different sort of mediums, right? And so you need people like you, like all the YouTubers, just to keep churning out content, because something will click for someone one day, and then they'll also then be join the fold, as I like to say. But what I was going to say was, it's come back. Okay, so what I go back to a lot is, I see, and I love it when I see this, is when you go back to videos from, say, the 90s and the noughties, when the internet first started coming up, and people like Bill Gates were on these chat show channels trying to explain what the internet was, and how, like, oh, streaming, have you heard of this thing called streaming? You can listen to something whenever you want online. And then there's Conan O'Brien sitting there taking the piss out of him, going, we got a radio, what do you need streaming for? And it's like, okay, at that point people couldn't really see the tipping point, or the real ripple effects of what live streaming can do. And now we all don't even need to question live streaming. And so I see that, and we're like in that sort of moment now where this kind of huge leap in technology is taking place, and it's just going to take time. And the people who are in it just need to be like persistent with like means of communication. And it takes a lot of people to communicate that. You know, you can have one YouTube channel or one Twitter channel, but you need like a whole sort of community of communities just trying to communicate that in all the different ways possible, so it can get out as far and wide as possible. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's such a good point that you hit on, actually, Adam, because people don't care what the technology is. People don't, and they don't understand as well, for the most part, like how a computer necessarily works, or how a TV can necessarily works, or even how your car runs. Like, as long as it's doing the function that they want it for, that's what they care about. And so, like, when you're talking, I was just thinking about how NFTs will be soon. I'm not sure exactly when, but when Instagram integrate NFTs, first of all, they're not going to call them NFTs. They're going to call them whatever, digital assets, digital collectibles, or even something that probably they make up themselves as a name. And they'll give it a use case that kind of is so intrinsically linked to the social element of what Instagram is doing, that annoyingly, they will be the ones that kind of bring in like millions and millions of people onto NFTs. And they probably won't even realize that they're owning NFTs, because they won't call them that.
I absolutely agree. Like Gary Vee says, people are demonizing NFT technology and crypto technology like our parents were when credit cards and the internet became a thing. Like, they would not dare to enter their credit card information online. Oh my gosh. Holy smokes. Like, absolutely not. But now, like, they're all saved on hundreds of websites, just being auto charged, and it's cool. And so when you look at NFTs, I feel like we're in that stage of, I guess you would call it rejection. That's probably not the best word for it, but we're definitely in a stage of rejection to market acceptance right now. It's because people just don't understand it, and they're demonizing a technology they don't understand prior to taking 5 minutes to try and like research it and understand it. And I find a lot of the time when I put out these videos on social media about explaining what NFTs are in different ways for different people, I get a lot of comments saying, oh, wait, really? This makes sense now. That's actually kind of cool. Like, how does this? And I'll get comments asking a specific question about a specific niche that I just explained what an NFT is to. And, you know, it's small. It's going to take a lot of effort from the entirety of the community to be able to onboard more people. And another video that I shot a couple days ago was on marketing and how we're going to market to the Web 2 consumer to bring them into Web 3. And it's not how you traditionally market, right? You're not going to just be able to put an NFT project in front of somebody who doesn't understand what NFTs are and sell it to them. It's just not going to fucking happen. Sure, Bored Apes, like that happened, but for the most part, you're not going to be able to do that. And I think that when Web3 companies, NFTs, and other companies alike, when they understand that they just need to start selling and marketing their products as not so much blockchain technology forefront and, hey, this is what it does for you. It doesn't matter in the back end how NFTs work or the blockchain technology works. It just matters that it works for you, right? Nobody cares how Gmail works. They just hope it works, right? And so that's the same thing. And that's where a lot of Web3 and NFT companies, I think, are falling short in terms of being able to market to a Web2 audience and bring more people onboarding, like onboard more people into Web3. Yep, a prime example of a company doing that is Starbucks with their stamps program, you know, like, and a lot of people, excuse me, a lot of people in the NFT space knock Starbucks for what they did and like look down on it. And it's like, well, that's a pretty narrow-minded viewpoint if you ask me, because they're helping onboard hundreds of thousands, if not millions of new people into Web3 without them really knowing like that they're using it. And that's how millions of people are going to be onboarded, right? These Web3 gaming is a perfect example, right? When you can come onto a game and sign in like normal, or turn your console, your PC on, or go to the website and start playing a game, when there is no barrier to entry other than just signing up, like any game right now that you can play, and just utilizing blockchain technology in the back end as an added benefit, that's when the masses will start adopting these things. Because then once you have those things done and you have users, you can go, oh, hey, by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed, but we've been using a bunch of Web3 blockchain technology in the back end that other games can't do because of so-and-so, right? And then they explain the benefits of it. And then gamers go, oh, wait, okay, this is cool. I want to be involved in Web3 gaming more. And it's going to force a lot of these Web2 companies to utilize Web3 technology, whether they like it or not.
I mean, going right back to what you said about Starbucks, I think it's such a genius move. I mean, you don't have to look very far back to realize that companies who don't move with the times, are not agile to sort of new technology, will just get sort of thrown onto the dust heap of history like Blockbuster Video did, because they didn't change the way they did business to sort of accommodate the new way of doing whatever, right? With that, in that case, it was consuming films and TV. But I mean, what the next step to like people like Starbucks offering like NFTs is the idea of like people are getting on board with a no sort of frictionless way of interacting with a blockchain. Because with Starbucks, I assume it'll just be an app, or you'll just log on and you'll just have it in your app, and that's just no different to what you're used to when you're using apps these days, right? But then if they suddenly realize that what they've collected in their Starbucks app can make them money, or they have something really rare that they won that could be sold on some kind of other market, then the step to take from having the asset to just getting, say, your digital, going through the sort of trouble of building a digital, or not building, but creating your digital wallet is so much easier when you have a task at hand that you want to achieve, right? You're like, I want to sell this item. I'm going to go through the pain of making that digital wallet. And hopefully by then the infrastructure will be so much better that it's not as painful as it is right now, and or as scary. So, I mean, I think, we have to look to the companies that are leading the way, the established big companies that are leading the way, because, they're going to be the ones that will be around in 20 years' time.
Yep, absolutely. And, that's a perfect segue into another question that I love asking pretty much all of my guests, especially if they're well-versed in NFTs, is you mentioned 20 years. So a question I like asking is, where do you see the biggest opportunity in the NFT space specifically from like a business perspective for growth in the next 12 to 24 months and the next 5 to 10 years?
That's a hard one. So 12 to 24 months, I mean, I think I'm a little bit biased because I spend my days like just looking into this specific use case, which is in gaming, and it's so exciting to see just all the different companies, what they're doing, how they're building upon the basic concept of NFTs, and like how NFT technology is so young. There's so much more we could do with the idea of composable NFTs and nested NFTs, and even with the ticketing concept, which is I know is going to be a huge narrative, pretty much like from a few months from now, right? Even then, if you look into it, there's a few little like friction points which could then undermine the concept of the ticketing. So, for example, if you have an NFT that comes with a QR code, like what's to stop people taking a screenshot and then just sending it to someone? There's all these other things that you can actually program into the NFT that kind of is time sensitive and location sensitive, that then allows it to be a little bit more unforgeable, as they say. And so I really like the idea of gaming because all these sort of new technologies within the NFT are being used in games. So, for example, you have what's called like an NFT passport, which I think so many companies I can name are kind of looking into it. One of the bigger ones is Immutable X. They're doing a gaming passport, but this idea of having an NFT that can hold other NFTs or be a soulbound token that can track all your progress across games, across the metaverse, and create for you almost like a digital gamer ID that has all your past history and experience on it, that can really represent who you are in the metaverse. And I think that that's a really exciting prospect, especially when right now, if you're a gamer and you want to be a professional gamer and you want to make money, it's actually quite a hard process to go from zero to making millions, right? And there's very little in between, because just the way that the system is run, the value chain runs upwards, right? So the big sort of gaming studios, they kind of own all the assets and they control the assets, and all the money flows upwards towards them. But in this kind of new paradigm, people will be able to represent themselves a little bit better and prove that they've done these things. And then actually people who are looking for gamers for like gaming teams can like verify good players or access good players much better than they are able to now. So yeah, I'm really excited about the gaming industry. I think that's going to be a huge one for like 5 to 10 years. Well, no, that's the one that's going to be in the next few years because it's already happening. In the 5 to 10 year category, oof, I mean, the list is unreal. I mean, one thing that I don't know how much gets talked about, but like seeing what governments do, because like this whole AI concept, for example, right? People have been talking about AI. You realize that the government is like so many years ahead of us, decades ahead of us, because the stuff that we're seeing now, the government had access to, I don't know, like I've heard several decades ago, right? So if they're able to access stuff earlier, what are they doing right now with technology that's way further ahead than what we can even imagine right now? What are they doing with that? So like things like digital identities, government identities, all those things are going to be really kind of pushed into the world. Whether it's in a good way or a bad way, I'm not sure, but I definitely think that's going to be a big impact on NFT usage in the next few years.
I I agree 100%. There's this well, one thing you brought up ticketing, and I always like to say, and I will sit on this pedestal until the day I got to write that $10,000 check or send that $10,000 in value of Ethereum to the person. I'm not going to lose this bet, but it's a bet that in the next 10 years from, I think it was like March of 2021 when I made this bet. So March 2031, if the ticketing industry across, multiple sectors isn't all utilizing NFT technology, I owe her 10 grand. And I truly believe that will happen. And I'm really excited. I actually have a future podcast guest coming on who is running a NFT ticketing company. They're raising capital right now, doing some really interesting stuff. So I'm excited to dive into that with them. But something you mentioned was that the government has access to things before we do. And it's absolutely true. And I believe, I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, but I truly believe that world governments are building, and a lot of these big tech companies are building their versions of NFT technology, blockchain technology, and crypto technology, and they're just not ready to launch it yet. It feels like they're really close, like what's happening in Nigeria with their currency and seeing CBDCs being introduced. It's scary because there's a lot of pros and cons to it. And it's an interesting thing to watch happen. I do truly believe that the governments throughout the world have plans in place to utilize blockchain technology in the future at a massively large scale. And you mentioned government IDs, things like car titles. All of these things are instantly going to be able to be verified on the blockchain, right? And yes, it's scary, but it's also kind of really intriguing. I don't trust governments. That's why we all love, decentralization and the technology that is being built right now. And I don't know. It's going to be an interesting next 5 to 10 years. If we get that far, who knows? We could just end all that shit tomorrow with some nukes. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like been hanging over us for at least a year now, hasn't it? If not a few. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that like I just come across in daily life where I'm like, wow, this process could have been so much quicker. And inevitably, it's always the government interactions that I have, whether not just government, but just infrastructure things, like whether you're going into a bank, whether you're going in, getting your driver's license, whether you're buying a house. There's so much like paperwork that could it's all about verifying and checking and like doing anti-money laundering, all those things. If they were all just gathered into a data into like a NFT, right? And that kind of can show a history so quickly. These things could be done with a touch of a button, and it would just make things so much more efficient. So I haven't been paying too much attention to the nitty gritty companies that are actually in that space, but I would not be surprised if like next year we see some really big changes. I mean, already we've heard, I mean, I can't count on my hands the number of countries who will probably try and switch on a CBDC this year into their country. I don't know how they would segue into it, but governments have means and ways to make things happen. And so same with the sort of efficiencies of our lives. But then I almost think it's like a double-edged sword, right? I want these things to be efficient, but then also, is it, if it's issued by the government, will there be sort of like terms and conditions that we're not quite happy with, or not, giving up our control, giving up our something of our privacy, so uh yeah, I mean, it's true, yeah.
Yeah, there's always drawbacks, but I think for the most part, it'll be a positive thing, especially if they're not trying to control the markets too much, because when you do that, you don't allow technology to really become what it can be and innovation to become what it can be. And I think, in my opinion, less government involvement is better. I believe in free markets, and there's always pros and cons to everything, but it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with CBDCs specifically over this next, I don't know what, 10 months. We're in February. Yeah, 10 months. Because I agree with you. I think there's going to be multiple test subjects that are probably in the back end being forced to do this as a test to see what happens.
Well, in a good way, I see that the sort of encroachment of the government is always going to be now alongside what is a pretty established, comparably so, Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin or Ethereum. And so given that the network effects of at least these two cryptocurrencies are so wide that, if anything too nefarious happened from the governments, people still could opt out. It's actually a bullish case for if the government missteps, then it will really kind of highlight the value proposition of things like Bitcoin and I'm actually Ethereum still, jury's out on Ethereum, but definitely Bitcoin.
I agree. Yeah, jury's definitely still out on Ethereum, considering I think what is it? AWS runs like 47% of their nodes or something, which is absolutely insane and must be monitored and watched. And something's got to change because that is that's tipping point of centralization. Yeah. So I want to kind of bring it back to NFTs. So I saw something that I know you said you haven't really dug into it and been paying attention to it very much, but OFR, which is Old Fashioned Research, I believe, I think it's an investment company of sorts. They just acquired On1Force, the old kind of blue chip, if you want to call it a blue chip NFT project, for an undisclosed amount. And they have an absolutely stacked team. What are your viewpoints from an analyst perspective on projects that get purchased and or transferred of ownership and then kind of promised a revival? Do you really foresee those being able to come back to their glory days of where they were? I mean, I think at one point On1Force was at like 30 ETH or 20 ETH, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see. I know there were some crazy sales. I think, okay, so all time, I think it was like 8, but they're at 2 right now.
From my perspective, when essentially when you get bought out, especially like maybe a project that maybe is kind of far past its glory days, you know, it's a big injection of money, and I'd say there's a huge proportion of NFT communities challenges is given to expenditure of money and not having enough money or not knowing how to deal with the amount of money that you have and where to allocate it. So if you have like somebody that kind of is established in the space, and I'm not sure, I don't really know the credentials of the buyer that you mentioned, but if they have a good track record in what they do, and they can actually come and give advice and reshape the way that they're sort of working with their community and delivering what they're supposed to be delivering, then I think it can really shake things up. It will give a renewed interest, because the question is what they're going to do with the money, right? That they now have. So I think it's probably a good thing, but there's so many sort of different interplays that you can have with this sort of thing, right? So, how does that affect the community? Will it be community first, or is it just going to be selling out and becoming sort of like another brand that has really no connection to the community? Because I really think the great thing about NFT communities is about community first, grassroots, people having a say in like a DAO like structure. But if these big wigs come in with all this money and kind of don't really stay connected to the community, then it's just going to be something people look at but won't want to participate in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Their team is absolutely stacked, and I'm certainly going to be paying attention. I don't know that I'm going to get in, at least quite yet. They went from, I think, 1 Ethereum, let's see, like 1 ETH floor price to 2. So they've already done a 2x in 2 days after this announcement. This announcement happened today or yesterday. And so there's a lot of trading and attention. I think it might be a good move in a couple months to pick up a few. And if their roadmap is showing things that I think are bullish and that I think that they can deliver on, the team is stacked, at least it looks like. So I don't know. I'm going to go in, check out the community, get a feel for it, get some of my alpha caller friends to shoot me their thoughts and see what happens. It'll be an interesting time.
Well, you were going to mention, you've mentioned a couple of times that the team is stacked. I mean, that's one of the most important things in sort of driving a good NFT project is does the team know what they're doing? Sometimes a really good hire or two can really turn around a crypto project. So, or any project really. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely look into that team and see what their credentials are, because if that's coming in on the back of a lot of money, then yeah, you're right. That's super bullish.
Yep. They say they're going to build out the IP, and I don't know. I got to look into it a little bit more. I've only read two articles on it. So haven't done proper research quite yet, but looking forward to doing it because I do have an allocation of capital that I do want to start deploying into different projects right now. I don't know why it feels like we're kind of bullish. I don't know. I do have a question though. Since you have a pulse on the NFT market quite a bit, I know it's been lessened since you've been doing some videos this past week, but I think you'll probably have one right off the rip. Is what's the number one project that you are looking at right now? Like what, like for the next 2 years, the biggest winner?
Well, it's interesting because I've very recently it struck me that everybody lives in a little bubble of their own sort of space, right? But depending on who they follow, right? So, I mean, I am super bullish on Neo Tokyo. I mean, what I see on a day to day, because that's the community that basically I'm in every day. And I do spend a lot of time in other communities, especially if I'm researching them or looking into them. And it's really about who is still there, even during like especially September to December last year. Who is still there? Who is still showing up? What value did they have? Because once the money's gone, or once the flipping opportunity, it kind of washes out all those people. Why would people continue to turn up? I've been hearing a lot of things about doodles. I haven't done much research about them, but I hear that they're a big one. But another one that community that I think could be huge is Rug Radio. I've been sort of teetering around the edges of this community and just seeing like their daily energy and what they bring, and the Twitter spaces and the sort of vibe that they have. And I really really like what they're doing, sort of in the media space a little bit more, trying to sort of make a media space that is decentralized, which I'd be really curious to see how that kind of develops. But they recently had a really cool hire for co-CEO alongside Farouk, so I'm really excited to see what he's going to bring to the project.
I did see that. I actually I think I caught that article like the first article that was released from Rug Radio like 10 minutes after, like right when they tweeted it. I don't know why I was on Rug Radio's Twitter when they tweeted that, and I was like, oh wow, this is bullish. I'm gonna pay attention to this on my watch list for sure. And I've known Farouk for quite a while. I used to build Instagram niche pages back in the day when Instagram was like fresh, and Farouk was right there doing the same thing. And not a lot of people know that, but there were hundreds of millions and billions of impressions per month coming through these networks of niche pages that we all kind of had together as a conglomerate, and we would help each other grow and whatnot. So I think he understands media deeply. He's quite connected, very very connected. So whether you like him or not, or whether you think he's like involved in rugs or not, because there has been allegations, I think at the end of the day he'll probably win, at least from an outside perspective, and looking at what they're doing, because I think what they're doing is pretty cool. And like you said, I'm intrigued to see what they do with the decentralized kind of media.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Actually, I didn't know about the rug allegations. I thought that they were a joke because obviously the rug name. So
I haven't dug deep enough into them to be like, oh yes, this for sure happened. I've seen some allegations. I did a brief like Google search. There hasn't been at least to my knowledge, there hasn't been like a Zach XBT or CoffeeZilla episode dropped about him. So in my mind, he's good. I think he's got a lot of positive things going on for him. I think overall they're going to do good things and he means well. But then again, I haven't looked too deeply, so I can't be like, oh yeah, he's definitely been involved with rugs. But people make mistakes.
I mean, it's the truth of the matter is that anybody, I mean, you just can't write off anybody you just can't guarantee everybody is a saint, right? Or not going to rug you. It's just the way that this game is played that sadly we have to be very, very careful in this space, and tread carefully, and almost just understand that it comes with the space. I mean, that's why I feel like that's why we, I mean, even exist as NGMI Lab, is that we want to help people avoid that sort of situation as much as possible. But then, after the FTX thing, just like it really has shaken at least my faith in just assuming that somebody knows what they're doing and assuming that they can have the best interests of their community in mind. Not to say that obviously I actually personally really like Farouk, but like you can't, yeah, there's always going to be a little bit of doubt with everyone.
I agree. And yeah, I I do agree. People make mistakes. It's whether or not they were very knowledgeable about what they were doing, in my opinion, that matters. And at the end of the day, in the online space, you're for the most part really not going to be able to genuinely figure that out, which is unfortunate because it, I guess, um, promotes the ability to scam. And like, I've 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 jokingly said this with a lot of my NFT friends who I'm close with in real life and on podcasts. And I've said this publicly. It's like if I didn't have ethics and morals, I would be much fucking richer than I am now because it's so easy to put together scams. Like it's ridiculously easy if you look at some of the scams that are working. It's very easy to set these things up and get them going. And it's just preying on people who are driven by FOMO or driven by hype, and it's very easy to do these things. And it's decentralized and it's, easy to get away with for the most part. And it sucks. I'll never be that. I'll never do that. I have morals, but it won't ever stop, ever.
Yeah, but what I love about decentralized community is that we constantly are working together. At least the good ones are trying to work together to build up an infrastructure from the ground up that kind of mitigates these kind of scammers or manages them. Like even with Kevin Rose's huge hack that happened and which shocked so many people. I'm sure you agree, because somebody like him to be hacked, and it's like no one is safe from actually it's not even a hack, is it? It was something else. We're not allowed to call it a hack. But but for them to have their wallet drained is just it's scary because it's just so easy that this could happen. But as a community, we've come together and it's just a reminder that we still have to focus on the solutions. A bit like the whole FTX thing. It's a reminder that we're here to be in a decentralized world with self-custody, and we just got used to and comfortable with just sticking our coins, or a whole generation of people got used to sticking their coins on exchanges because it was easy, right? But this kind of thing just keeps on reminding us that we have to actually go back to the core ethos of crypto, which is self-custody, decentralization, community governance, and those sorts of things. And until those really kind of are implemented in a proper infrastructure way, we will continue sadly to have fallouts like this. Which actually brings me on to one other thing. Actually, I wanted to mention when you're talking about NFT communities. I sort of slightly under. I mean, he's not under the radar at all, but um, slightly more Zen space is Zen Academy, right? And I love what he's doing with the space, bringing people on, having a free mint, allowing people to come together to learn and continually learn about NFTs, because it's hard for anyone to say they're an expert because the whole industry has only existed less than 2 years. Well, actually, a little bit longer if you include CryptoPunks, but like in general, most people have been in it for 2 years. And so I love that there's like people like Zen Academy are really just trying to, or Zeneca, trying to help everyone collectively learn and remind ourselves that we have so much to learn in this space.
Yep, I do. I love what Zeneca's doing, and what they're doing with Zen Academy. I'm actually really close friends with the CTO over there, and I'm looking forward to potentially having Zeneca come on the podcast in person in Dubai when I go out there for an event. So hopefully we can make that happen. That would be a great conversation, I think. So I like to keep these podcasts like around that hour mark, and we're approaching that 50-minute mark. So I do kind of want to start tapering off and asking you some of the final questions that I like to ask my guests. So we've talked a ton about NFTs. We talked about Web3 gaming, ticketing, NFT technology, governments, CBDCs, a ton of stuff, right? We barely touched on anything about yourself. You said you were an actress. You said you're still in that space. I like to ask my guests one thing, if you could tell me about you that is interesting or that you mind sharing.
Well, yeah, since I mentioned that I'm an actor, basically I'm an actress. So yeah, I've been an actress for 10 years, and I've toured the country. I've actually toured parts of Europe and the Middle East, even in theatre. I've been on television in a few shows. I don't know if you've heard of like Man Like Mobeen or the Lazarus Project, and I even have a small part on a show that's on TV right now in the UK called The Gold. And it's been my first love, to be honest. When I was a kid, I just loved it. I love stage. I love acting. I love performing. I like doing silly performances and things like that. And it just kind of spiraled. I got into acting kind of early 20s, actually. I started when I was like a teenager, and I was going to a local theatre group, and then I was like, I want to be an actor, but my parents were like, why don't you get a degree first? And obviously, so that delayed it a bit. But yeah. And then I would say that actually crypto is my second love. Well, it's my first love right now, actually, but it's the second thing I've discovered that's kind of like excited me in the way that acting excited me when I was a kid. Ever since that discovery in my grandma's bedroom in 2020, I eat, sleep, breathe crypto, and I love it so much. And I think it's got its problems, it's got its issues, but I really want to be part of this space and just keep building and building and building, meeting people, creating things. And one thing I noticed that is a really big difference between a big chunk of the acting industry and what's great about crypto, which is also a double-edged sword, but is the permissionless nature of this industry. If you want to be part of this industry, you just be part of this industry. You just go and do things. You create stuff. You make stuff. No one is telling you can't. And I think that's something that I feel like I was a little bit sick of in acting, whereas like, you want to do this, so you got to do all these things, and no, sorry, we can't have you. And that's hard. So yeah, that's why I love this space.
That's very cool. I've never talked to someone who has been an actor or an actress. So interesting to gain perspective from your viewpoints and understand kind of from your thought process what NFTs are, how you foresee the future of NFTs impacting not only the world and blockchain technology impacting the world, but impacting us on a day-to-day basis here just in the NFT space, because it's so small and tight-knit. It's been an honor to have you on. That was a wonderful episode. Thank you for coming on. I would love to invite you back on and for a future episode. If you would like, sometime later this year, maybe some of our predictions will come true and we can talk about the CBDCs or ticketing, updates on ticketing and the industry there. But yeah, I like to give, I guess, like the last 60 seconds to 2 minutes to our guests to kind of tell people how to get connected with you. All of your links that you send me will be in the description. So you don't got to say them out loud. So Twitter, website, whatever you want will be in the description. But tell people how to get connected with you and what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adam. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm really honored that you invited me onto your podcast. So thank you. Yeah, and if you guys want to want to get in touch with me, so I'm Koko. I co-founder of NGMI Lab, which is a research lab, a research reports company that delivers deep, in-depth research on Web3 projects, crypto gaming, metaverse, and blockchain infrastructure projects. My Twitter handle is Citizen906. That's a callback to Neo Tokyo. And you can actually also find me if you go into NGMI Lab, you can find our socials there, and I'll be in the Discord through NGMI Lab as well. So you can always directly chat to me on Discord too.
Awesome. Well, if you guys enjoyed the episode, go shoot her a follow. Check out NGMI Labs and what they're doing. I think it's pretty interesting to see very, I guess, how would you call it? It's not, is it token gated access to these reports?
Yeah, so it's a membership that you have to pay for, but we do sort of like free insights through our newsletter as well. And yeah, if you follow our Twitter, we do loads of giveaways and opportunities to get in at a lower price. So yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. I love seeing it. I love seeing the innovation. I am looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to build here in the future. It has been an honor to have you on. Thank you for taking the time to come talk with us. As always, everybody who is listening, thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Drop us a review, drop us a comment, let us know how we did. Give us some feedback, critical or positive, whatever it is. I'll always take feedback. So if you guys enjoyed the episode, drop a like, drop a comment, drop a review, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.